Some memories, they don't fade. They don't blur with time. They sharpen. Like a photograph developing in a darkroom, revealing details you wish had stayed hidden. This story begins over 10 years ago, when I was young enough to believe my parents could protect me from anything. I was wrong. Act 1, the morning after. It was a weekend morning, ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of morning where nothing should go wrong. I was walking downstairs for breakfast when I heard them, my parents, in the kitchen, talking in those hushed tones adults use when they don't want you to know something's wrong. I stopped on the stairs, listened. My father's voice. There was something in it I'd never heard before. Concern, real concern. Happened again. That's all I caught. 2 words. But they were enough. When I walked in, they stopped talking immediately. Smiled. Lied. Nothing, sweetheart, just work stuff. But I knew. You always know when adults are hiding something from you. I didn't learn the truth until days later, from my older brother. Act 2, what my father saw. My father is a lawyer, the kind who works until the world goes quiet, until the only sounds are the hum of his computer and the settling of the house around him. That night, he was working late in his home office, like he always did. It was just past midnight. That's when he saw it. A Chevy Suburban, black, or maybe dark blue, hard to tell in the streetlight, creeping down our street at 5 miles per hour. 5 miles per hour. Not slow like someone looking for an address. Not slow like someone lost. Slow like the driver had taken their foot off both pedals. Like the car was drifting, prowling. My father watched it pass our house. Then, it came back. Same speed, same deliberate crawl, but now in the opposite direction. And then it stopped. Directly across from our house, the engine still running, headlights off, just sitting there in the darkness. Act 3, the vigil. My father watched that car. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. No one got out. No doors opened. The car didn't move. He tried to go back to work, tried to focus on briefs and contracts and billable hours. But his eyes kept drifting back to that window, to that car, still there, still watching. Around 2 a.m, exhaustion won. He fell asleep at his desk, his neck bent at an uncomfortable angle, case files scattered around him. When he woke up, the sun was just beginning to threaten the horizon. That deep blue-black of pre-dawn. 5:30 a.m. He looked out the window. The car was still there. Same spot, same angle, like it had never moved. Like it had been watching our house for 5.5 hours. And then, as the first rays of sunlight touched the street, it drove away. Slowly, deliberately, the same way it had arrived. Epilogue. The pattern. My father later admitted something he hadn't told anyone. This wasn't the first time. He'd seen cars before, late at night, driving back and forth on our street, never stopping, never staying. But this was different. This was a message. We are watching. We know where you live. We can wait. At the time, we told ourselves it was nothing, a coincidence, someone who'd had too much to drink, a confused driver, a prank. We told ourselves a lot of things, but deep down, we knew this was only the beginning, because this was just the first incident.
My two kids, Sam and Robbie, are twins. They're 6 years old. A year ago, we were living in our old house, but something happened that forced us to move. It's a long, awful story. I lived in that house for 4 years. My wife Carol and I got married while living there, and our kids were born there too. The neighborhood was slowly changing, and not for the better, but we still planned on staying there for the foreseeable future. Until this happened. Our house was on a corner. The house behind us was hidden by tall trees and thick bushes, so we barely ever saw those neighbors. But the neighbor on our right, his name was Steve. He had moved in less than a year earlier. I'd only spoken to him a couple of times, and both times I could barely understand him because of his heavy accent. Overall, he didn't seem like the friendliest guy. Two of his upstairs windows overlooked our backyard. There wasn't much privacy, but I never saw lights on in those rooms, so I assumed they were unused guest rooms. One summer afternoon, Sam and Robbie were playing in the backyard with their blow-up pool and water guns while I was doing yard work. As I walked toward the detached garage, I noticed Steve standing at his window, just for half a second. The moment I saw him, he turned and walked away. It felt odd, but I ignored it. Later that evening, as the sun was going down, the kids went back outside to play in the pool. Carol and I were in the kitchen making dinner when their laughter suddenly stopped. A few seconds later, Robbie came inside. He told me there was a flashing light coming from the neighbor's window. I followed him into the backyard. He pointed at one of Steve's upstairs windows and said a white light kept flashing. I asked both kids if it looked like a camera flash. They both said yes. My stomach dropped. I told them to dry off and come inside immediately. After that, I told Carol what happened. She assumed the worst, just like I did, and told me to go confront Steve. I went next door and knocked. No answer. His car was in the driveway. He was home. After knocking and ringing the bell several times, I gave up and went back inside. Carol wasn't convinced at all, neither was I. Weeks later, late one night, Carol and I heard our side gate quietly open, then close. She told me to check the backyard. I turned on all the lights and searched, but found nothing. That's when I noticed Steve's backyard lights were on. I walked over and looked over the fence and nearly jumped out of my skin when Steve suddenly appeared on the other side. He asked if I needed something. I told him someone might have been sneaking through our yard. He said no. I then bluntly asked if he'd been watching my kids or taking pictures. His reaction was strange. He became overly offended, almost yelling. Without proof, I apologized and went back inside. But Carol was furious. She was convinced he was lying. A few weeks later, in the middle of the night, Carol woke me up in a panic. The kids were screaming. I ran to their room. Robbie was crying and said someone had been outside his window, and there was a camera flash. I felt rage. I asked what the person looked like. He didn't see them. We brought the kids into our room. With the lights off, I peeked out our bedroom window toward Steve's house. And that's when I saw him. He was peeking out from the same upstairs window, staring back at me. I stormed over and rang his doorbell at least 15 times. He never answered. That night, I called the police and made a report. Within a month, we moved.